هنبدأ الآن الدسكشن بانل اللي هي حتكون بعنوان collaborative efforts. أنا حادي المايك الآن للرائعة هالة أنفاري. Did I say it right? And she will be talking to the amazing people. أمار بحبراني, آية علي. خلينا نسمع تحية أول شيء لهالة. نسمع تحية لهالة. Yes, I like that. You know what? Stop clapping. Let's do this. A lot of people are complaining about the clap. Yes. ونسمع تحية لآية علي رضا. Yes, make some noise. طارق يماني. Make some noise for طارق يماني. Mr. Jazz. علي خضرة. Make some noise for علي خضرة. And last and not least, the one and only Miss Suzanne Talhou. Make some noise. Okay, I'm going to give the mic to the one and only Miss Hala. Inshallah, you guys enjoy the panel discussion. Again, hashtag Nuqat 2014. ويلا خلينا نحمسهم بتحية.
Well, thank you very much for joining us again this afternoon at Nuqat 2014. The panel discussion today is actually a perfect example of a collaboration, because we've been sort of talking to each other to try and see what we can present to you that would be of some use. And I'm going to play the devil's advocate. First of all, I'm not going to introduce everybody because you have the introductions and also they were just introduced, so we can go straight into the discussion, which I think is going to be more important. It seems to me that everything that we talked about today was somewhat abstract. And I'm kind of going to play devil's advocate to try and get an idea of the tangible realities of collaboration. And I'm going to start the discussion with a small principle from political economy, which it's 101 in political science, that the rational man wouldn't vote. And if we take elections and voting as one of the most collaborative efforts at the top level of any society, if scientists think that this is irrational, I'm going to say that collaboration by nature is irrational. Why do we do it? Why do we need to do it? How do we do it? And the kind of ideas that come to my mind that I would like to address is, what are the key elements for collaboration? Is it enough to have a common goal? Or are there other elements that are required to overcome this rational opposition? Does geography and identity make a difference? Does language make a difference? And I'm going to start with Ali, because Ali Khadra, who is a publisher, art promoter, and philanthropist, and known to all of you, and the man behind Canvas. Printing a magazine is the most collaborative of exercises. It's something you have to do on a deadline, and you have to get everybody online, so you know, up to speed. How do you do that, and how do you get your vision to be shared by everybody who's working on an issue, say?
Well, a minute ago, Halle said, I'm going to take it easy on you, and I'm not going to ask you anything. So anyway, thank you, Halle. Making a magazine, the making of a magazine, I think, is the most interesting of all collaborations, in my opinion, because what we do, we gather an incredible number of very interesting people around a table, and we come up with a theme. Usually I come up with a theme, and then I see all these sparks around the table, and everyone's talking and coming up with ideas and, you know, checking I mean, I remember my editor for Sorbet, she told me she has an experience of 28 years of editing top caliber magazines. She came to the country and she told me, Ali, I never Googled so much in my life working with you. You know, there's so much research to be done. Collaboration is all about bouncing off ideas one to the other, and then, you know, many times from collaborations, we deviate completely from the subject, and we discover a better subject and a better subject, and then the sky's the limit. And this is something in the creative world, you should never get a creative and put him or her with shackles. You know, collaboration is where you free the soul, you free the mind, and really the sky's the limit. And anything is attainable. This is what I tell all the guys who work with me. Nothing stops you. You want the moon, you get the moon. Many times we thought it's very difficult to get someone like Anish Kapoor, or it's incredibly difficult to get Marina Abramovich. Yes, it's difficult. I mean, you know, obviously these people have incredible calendars, and they travel so much, and they're wanted by all the media around the world. But when you put your heart and mind and soul in it, you'll get it. It all comes from collaborations. I have so much time, I mean limited time in my day, where I can watch TV, read the paper, do some internet, some Instagram here and there. The others around me have equal time as well. So all of us see different things, and when we unite, it's like this potpourri. It's like this I call it the couscous pot, you know, and I love couscous. And then we have this great recipe around us, and we start creating meals and recipes, and this is where ideas are born, from collaborations.
Would you say that the premise of this year's Nuqat was, one of them was that are we as a people in this region, why are we so individualistic and not so good at collaboration? Now, with your business, it's obvious that it has to be, that vision has to be given, and you're saying that it has to be complete freedom for the creative, but you must set the parameters, obviously. But have you found difficulties in terms of trying to bring the magazine model, and you are obviously the foremost magazine in art in the region at the moment and internationally. Have you encountered any difficulties in the region for bringing this kind of idea of collaboration together?
Yeah. In order to have a good collaboration, it's like cooking a meal. You know, I always go back to my catering roots, because this is what I really am. I'm an airline caterer. And when I go back, when you cook a meal and then you have this incredible recipe, but the ingredients are poor, your meal is going to be kaput. No one's going to eat your food, and no one's going to buy it. No one's going to come back to your restaurant. So you have to get the right ingredients. When you collaborate, you have to get the right people with the right knowledge and the right stamina and the right force of, you know, they have to be outspoken and they have to be very interactive. Otherwise, the collaboration doesn't work. The elements are not there. And in order for me to find the right people in art and culture from the Middle East and Arab world was a subject that was not available 10 years ago before we created Canvas. So we had to send these candidates to London. So I had to send them, form them. So each one of our editors went to Sotheby's Institute of Art, and they studied for, like, there was a week or 10 days per year where they went on the expense of the company in order to form them and make them, you know, the right caliber for them to come back and start collaborating and creating. But without the right people, collaboration is futile.
So the right people, and also in what you're saying, also giving those people who you saw the creative instinct in, the right kind of training in order to be able to collaborate correctly.
Of course. I mean, it's like any field in the world. If you don't have the right people, if you have a maison de couture, you know, and you're doing these couture dresses, or you're flying airplanes, or you're I don't want to say restaurants, again, cooking a meal. So, but whatever you do in any field, you need to have the right people, the right candidates. This was a big challenge for me. Art and culture from the Middle East and Arab world has always existed. I'm not saying that we created it. It has always been there, of course. But the media of art and culture was non-existent. It was just let's fill a page in the newspaper. Oh, we have an empty page in, you know, the page number 55 or something. Let's fill it with, there's a gallery show in somewhere in town. Let's just put some big picture, a huge picture and a bit of text. This is how it was before. And then we came and we gave these artists a voice. Not only the artists, we created a market. I went all the way to London. I spoke to Sotheby's. I spoke to Christie's. I said, hey guys, I knocked on their door. Come over here. See what we have. These artists are valuable. Suddenly, the not many people like me, because the $2,000-3,000 works are now $500,000 works, you know. So we kind of help the market, but at the same time, we hurt ourselves. You know, now it's all inaccessible art.
Well, we're very grateful for all that you've done, and even taking the price up as an artist. I'm very grateful. Please carry on. But you make a point that I want to bring Susan in, that if we take the idea of collaboration outside the magazine to the collaboration between the producers of the magazine and the readers. So Canvas is produced in English. And as Ali says, it creates a sort of connection to the outside world where as you were saying, we're not seen just as terrorists, but we can also be seen as artists. In what you advocate about the primacy or the fact that you would prefer the Arabic language to say the first word, how do you feel about Canvas being produced in English, and how do you see the usefulness of it in terms of a collaboration by spreading the word in a wider world?
I have to speak in English, I guess.
You have to, because I won't be able to challenge you otherwise.
That's a very challenging question, especially that Ali is here. We didn't have any side talk before to get to know each other's more and know his main objectives, and I didn't have the chance to.
But there is a
to
reason
get
I
access.
ask this.
Yeah,
The reason I ask this is because I want to get to the idea of perception in collaboration and how much language has to do with it.
Yes. First, if the objective is to tell the world that we have content, we are creators, we can collaborate and create something that's new, that's attractive, that has a purpose, then this is by itself is a noble thing to do, regardless of the language that we're using it. But this doesn't mean that if Canvas succeeded in doing this in English, then we have to imitate, or other initiatives has to follow. I think we have to always go back and see what's our main purpose from the thing that we're creating. I guess, I don't know, I have to discuss with Ali more about his choice of English, choosing English as the main language for Canvas. I guess it is the easiest choice, or the first choice that came to your mind?
No, it's to reach a more global market. It's exactly what you said earlier. I mean, the aim was just to reach a bigger.
Which sort of brings me to this idea of, preserving our own language as a form of collaboration within, but also trying to then translate the ideas that we have as a form of a larger collaboration. I am sort of extending the idea of collaboration to that point. And I guess what I was hoping, I was being a little niggling here a bit, in order to try and get to the point of how far is collaboration dependent on language, do you think?
Actually, it's
Susan,
the base.
may I just add something? Canvas is Middle East and Arab world. Remember, there's Iran.
Yeah.
So I had to use one language that covers the Middle East.
Exactly. Okay. Well, answering your question in specific, regardless of Canvas, is that collaboration depends on language in its initial stages, unless you have a solid foundation and platform in which the ingredients are from your own culture. It's not totally consumed, then you will never be able to bring the world anything new. So yes, language is a very important, it's a prerequisite for any kind of collaboration on nationwide or region-wide collaboration. But the other tactical collaborations remain with different objectives, but they should support the base, the foundation. We can never create a collaborative work and share it with the world in a new perspective unless we start from our own environment, heritage, language, dialect, day-to-day life.
And Amar, what do you think about the idea of language in art and in collaborative behavior? As someone who does art therapy, how important is language to the creative mind?
For the visual language.
Sorry?
The visual language. So
the visual language.
Yes. Talking about.
Are we talking about? What about the linguistic language?
Okay, I will explain. The visual language is the combination of art and culture. We, as human beings, we were known that our alphabetical order was visual. It was pictorial. If you see the caves if you see our hieroglyphic language in Egypt, if you see the Babylons, okay, it's all pictorial. So art and culture, as I said, it goes way back. In art therapy, it's art and science, okay? So it's the combination of the artistic method of using your own language. So the language can be pictorial and it can be linguistic. So not because I'm an art therapist, you know, I cannot let my client actually speak to me instead of doing a process of creativity. But language sometimes is a barrier. And I'm going to talk about language from within. As long as we live, we usually say things sometimes that we cannot define or label or mean. So for me, it gets easier because I use the visual language, the pictorial language. It eliminates the borders between linguistics and specifications of language. So if a person is drawing a tree, a person who is Persian will draw probably a local tree. I will probably draw a palm tree. A person who lives in New York will draw an apple tree. Okay? To me, that is language. So the pictorial language in art therapy is the language. But if we're going to talk about linguistics, I have to say that I do not discard that from communication, but I find that defining one's own language with a label is sometimes restricting their creative ability. Because a person in front of me can be bilingual, but he expresses himself or herself with a language that I don't speak. So we have to reach the middle ground, and this is where collaboration
And this is
becomes.
probably what Tariq can help us with, because
Yes.
music being a language
Yes.
in its own
So this is the
right.
auditory language.
Right, so
Yes.
you say written, you say visual, I say
Yes.
auditory.
And in your collaborations, it's probably more possible for you to sort of have limited linguistic connections because you're actually using music to...
Exactly, there's almost no linguistics in music. I mean, not almost, there's absolutely no linguistics, especially when we're improvising, you know, we don't talk. We sometimes discuss the form maybe, or we would say, we give numbers, you know, like let's go to A, let's go to B, you know, but still like we don't need language. And, but I more agree with what she's saying in terms of, for me, language is a barrier in most of the time because originally there was no language, right? I mean, language was created to speed up communication. But if we think about, so before language, what was the means of communication that we don't know? I mean, we have absolutely no idea what the prehistoric man did. How did they communicate? And I personally believe there was some kind of metaphysical connection that we lost forever. Probably we didn't, I mean, it's coming back.
Possibly because of language.
Because of
in a
language
sense,
and because
gives
of...
us a
You have to
geography.
define language when you're saying language.
I mean, we're
I'm
definitely
thinking
talking
about
about
national
like language,
You
what
know, if
we're
we're talking
talking...
about verbal and written language, I agree with you totally.
Yeah, exactly. So what I think is that before, like today, what we have that is similar to what was there before is the internet. And I think the internet is a kind of alternative to what the original man had, which was like kind of supernatural brain activity that today we see as supernatural, but at that time it wasn't. So when the Mayans invented the pyramids and then the Egyptians also invented the pyramids, they built the pyramids at the same time, and they saw this similarity, this astonishing similarity. While there was absolutely no connection between them, it means that there was something governing these people, tricking them to think in that kind of pattern, and they created the same patterns. So this means that we are governed by something that is way more advanced and way more universal. And this pattern exists in the universe, right? So there's something that tells us what to do. There's something that tells us this is beautiful. So all the world kind of does the same thing.
So you feel there is a common emotional language?
There's a common pattern that governs us. And this pattern, I mean, I don't want to go into the science of it, but it's, you know, there's a lot of people who talk about the Fibonacci numbers and these numbers, how they occur in nature. They occur in all the spiral forms. A lot of painters painted using the golden ratio, they call it the golden rectangle. And supposedly the golden rectangle is about beauty. It's like things that fit the golden rectangle or the divine proportion, as Leonardo da Vinci called it. It means that this thing is going to be beautiful. So music follows these aesthetics, painting, architecture. So language.
There is a spiritual element that you're bringing in here.
I wouldn't say spiritual, you know, but that's the thing. For me, spiritual is mathematics. You know, is a form of mathematics. It's numbers, because we all believe in different things, but in the end, we all believe in the same thing. It's the need. We have the need to believe in something. So sometimes, if what you believe in doesn't really resonate with me, because I'm from a different culture, I'm gonna turn to something else that I believe in. But in the end, it's gonna turn out the same thing. I need to believe in something, and I find something to believe in. Yeah.
So, and that was what I was saying, that, you know, the elements of collaboration, one of them being a common goal that we obviously have to, I mean, in the magazine industry, obviously it's partly directed, but it obviously has to have the like-minded people. In music, you find it through the notes. In art curation, this collaboration between artist and curator can actually be quite tense at times.
At times.
So, how do you negotiate the difficulties of communicating with your artist and a number of artists when you're curating?
Well, I've been listening to what everybody's been saying, and I've been trying to sort of think about it in terms of my own experiences, especially with artists. And I think that absolutely, I'm coming from sort of a Western educated background. My Arabic is limited at best, and yet I've had to sort of go back to Saudi and work with and deal with a lot of artists who don't speak a word of English. And yes, it has been difficult, but having said that, I actually do agree with you in that in terms of communication, language is somewhat overrated. You know, I've worked with artists who, like I said, they don't speak a word, and yet there's been sort of a perfect understanding. And I think that comes a lot more with when you share a sort of like common ground, a certain vision, a certain, kind of enlightenment. And I've had to deal with others who've spoken perfect English, and yet we can come to absolutely no agreement whatsoever, And again, you have art, which is, the point of it is really that it transcends the barrier of language.
So how do you then make that tangible, that motivation that makes you close? If we set aside language, then what is that ingredient that connects you in a collaborative work?
Well, you look at the artwork, and you see something in it resonates. And then just through spending time, you'd be surprised how much you can get out of an artist just through spending time with them. Obviously we do have to talk, and I do ask them a lot of things, and a lot of the time I have to be very sort of, they're not open when they speak about it, so you kind of have to be very sort of dig deep and be very specific with your questions, and you'd be surprised sort of what comes out. And more than anything, and I'm sure you agree, it's not what they say, it's the way that they say it.
They're artists.
Yeah,
they're artists. They don't speak as much as they paint and sculpt and photograph.
Can I agree with you totally. And I have to say, if we're going to talk about the language of collaboration, it's the hidden language. Okay? So it's the codes. Sometimes it's numeric, sometimes it's pictorial, sometimes it is written or verbal, but it's actually the hidden language. It's like when you look at a contract and there is this little piece down there that says it all, right? So you have to read between the lines. Collaboration is not about tangible language. It's about what you intend to do with this language. I think collaboration is about not setting a goal, but actually understanding that goal. Is understanding the hidden language, understanding the intent of this humanistic approach, and understanding our responsibility towards that language and towards that goal. So it goes back again to that hidden perspective that normally people won't tell or give away. Goes back to your first statement about individuality in this region. We are always scared of sharing. I'm saying sharing here. Why? Because when we share something, you are taking a part of me. Why are we scared?
Because we think we're giving something away. That seems to be the common
because we are saying
misconception.
sharing. But if we say exchanging, like we're doing at Nuqat, صح? Hala, I'm learning from you, learning from Ali, learning from Susanna. We're learning with each other. Our audiences are engaging with their own, existence in that physical space. It's like the gallery, right? It's an interaction. The reader of Canvas is an interaction. That's the hidden language, right there. So why are we scared? It doesn't have to be scary. It just have to modify the verbal language that you are talking about. So we have to say exchanging instead of sharing. We have to say accepting instead of actually perceiving. We have to say it has a value, all of that. And that's collaboration right there.
But you said something.
Oh no, sorry. I just wanted to go back to something that you brought up at the beginning, and I think sort of collaboration comes with a very, difficult psychology, in terms of one's ego. Like we are pretty much our egos, and when you sort of enter into a collaborative effort, you stop being an I and you become a we. And you kind of have to just subscribe to that common vision and just forget about issues of kind of ownership or credit or, and as long as you kind of contribute to that end result, like that has to be your main purpose.
I would
so
add
it's sort of
to
a
that
shedding
also
of ego.
heritage. Sorry, but I would add to that heritage.
Sorry, you would add what?
Heritage.
Heritage.
So that's another problem I think we have also as Arabs in general. Like, why do we have this problem of collaboration? It's the ego that you mentioned, the things that she mentioned, and then like we're afraid, like as if we always have this complex of the West. It's like, oh, we're imitating the West, so it's wrong, we shouldn't do it. And this is, I think, for me, it's the biggest problem in what we do. Is like our art is not gonna advance if it doesn't get mixed. It has to reproduce with something else. I mean, that's what the whole humanity is about. It's about reproduction, right?
Yeah.
Like, different kinds of people reproduce with each other, and they bring an amazing new kind of offspring.
In your collaboration, you obviously have a more global vision. So
exactly, yeah.
So for you, that's not a problem. As an artist myself, sort of, the idea of imitating the West is one thing, but also pandering to the West's need for Orientalist goods from us is another. But sometimes I find that we get very scared of being Oriental because we're trying to run away from being Orientalist. So, and I think we should be allowed to be Oriental. But you said about, both you and Ali were touching on... Sorry? Oh, yes, we are going to, in about 5 minutes, it's question and answer with the audience. Well, if you just allow me to raise one more point in the next 4 minutes, then we'll open the panel to the floor, and then you can ask all the questions that you like.
Yes,
I was just going to go back to this point that you were saying that there has to be a certain amount of freedom, and you were saying that you should allow the creatives that freedom to be able to express themselves. One point that comes to my mind is it possible to collaborate in a purely democratic situation? Should there not be certain parameters fixed in order for the collaboration to go forward? And my other question from the panel is that can we in this region collaborate if we do not have the basic tools that we are all talking about. So first of all, I mean, is it the parameters? Is it possible to collaborate in a fully democratic system?
What is democracy?
There you go.
That brings me to another label of the question. I'm sorry, Hala, I'm being the devil advocate for your own language today. But that's me, okay? What is democracy, Hala? You know?
I don't mean democracy in the sense
Democratic.
of political democracy, but if we are going to collaborate.
Yes.
For example, I'm sure that if a magazine will not close if everybody's doing their own thing.
But
So there has to be that vision, that heritage, that common language.
I'm
that
going
takes us
to be
forward.
also another devil's advocate and tell you that total freedom sometimes will cause chaos.
That's what I was
Okay?
hoping.
So
to
there has to be a
address.
system, a collaborative system like how our minds think. As today, I told our beautiful people here at Nuqat how our minds think in systems. It's never chaotic. Even your chaos is an organized chaos. It's numeric, it has a value within your own feelings. So it's never, ever chaos. It's a system. I think the secret here for good collaboration or effective collaboration within our own region is creating a system, not actually freedom.
And I think you need
Okay.
a leader.
It's
There,
parameters.
there must be a leader also, I think.
Yeah.
Even if the leader changes. Like it could be a system of leaders, but there's at a certain point a leader and then the leader could switch to another leader, but it cannot be without leader.
Yes, and leadership is different than managerial position. A curator is a managerial position. I assume that also Ali does managerial decisions.
Of course, you have
Of
to.
course,
I mean, you know, when,
but
yeah.
you're also a leader of your own movement. So leadership is the key. Leadership and effective leadership, effective terminology of a system, creating a system. This is a system now at Nuqat. What are we doing here? Right?
Exactly.
We're collaborating, expressing our opinions freely, but within a system.
So, since we are going to be collaborative, and this is a collaborative moment, just as a conclusion, it seems to me that the kind of ingredients that we're looking for in tangible collaboration is a common language, a common vision, some kind of road plan, and then a common will to achieve those goals, hopefully in a creative moment.